Hello and a warm welcome to India Tonight with me, Jude Sanat and Shibani Garat. Shibani, it's been a bloodbath on Wall Street, but Reliance not doing too bad for itself in earnings.
Absolutely, Jude. First quarter turned out to be a stellar one for RIL as the conglomerate fired all cylinders with revenue, PAT and EBITDA overshooting expectations powered by solid performance in the oil and gas business. Revenue crossed 3 lakh crore for the first time, while the PAT saw a sharp jump of 23%, coming in close to 21,000 crore compared to last quarter. Talking about Jio, ARPU saw a marginal rise at 215.6 versus 214 in the last quarter of FY26. Commenting on the results, Chairman and MD Mukesh Ambani said he is positive on the year going forward and the upcoming Jio IPO will be a key milestone for the group. My colleague Ashesha joins in with more details.
Well, yes, big boy Reliance Industries has reported better than expected set of numbers, and on the revenue front, it's a big beat as compared to street expectations. Now, remember, consolidated revenue has come in at about 3,09,000 crore versus our expectations of about 2.9 lakh crore rupees, and that's a big beat, not only versus expectations, but even on a sequential basis, revenue has risen by about 5%. Now, as far as EBITDA is concerned, we have seen a growth of about 8% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. Now, if we look at the segment-wise performance, remember retail revenue has declined, and that has been a bit of a disappointment because retail revenue has declined by about 8%. Retail EBITDA too has seen a decline of about 9%. We were expecting growth for retail segment to slow down, but it has actually declined, and that could be a bit of a negative. But other than that, the silver lining, of course, is the oil and gas EBITDA, which has shown a massive growth of about 19% on a sequential basis versus a decline that we were penciling in. So oil to chemical business and oil and gas business, over here we have seen solid performance. As far as O2C EBITDA is concerned, that has risen by about 17% on a sequential basis. Meanwhile, let's also talk about the telecom business, the Jio ARPU. That figure has come in at 215 rupees. 215.6 rather, which is an increase of a marginal 0.7% on a sequential basis, and even on a year-on-year basis, that's a bit of a growth. Now, one of the factors, of course, is there was one additional day in the quarter gone by, and apart from that, the customers have also risen, which supported ARPU growth in the quarter gone by. So, customer base has now risen to 533.3 million. That's an increase of about 8.9 million on a quarter-on-quarter basis. So, net subscriber addition trend has also been very strong this time around. Now, the commentary that has come in with respect to Jio is also positive, where Mukesh Ambani has said that Jio Platforms has already filed its DRHP and it is already closer, one step closer to the Jio listing, which is likely to take place in the next couple of months. So, all in all, strong set of numbers. Retail segment performance has been muted and weaker than expectations, but otherwise, if you look at the performance, Jio has been very strong, customer addition has been strong, ARPU in line with what we were working with. Oil and gas and the O2C segment has reported much better than expected set of numbers this time.
On to action from geopolitics next. The conflict in West Asia has now escalated as the United States has struck key Iranian infrastructure. Now, the strikes collapsed a tower at Iran's Chabahar port on the Gulf of Oman. Remember, the port in question is in southern Iran, and it has significant investments from India. In fact, the American strikes have also hit bridges in the Hormuzgan province, killing at least 7 people, even as Iran also acknowledged that there were attacks that were carried out on the country's power infrastructure during the US airstrike itself. My colleague Sumita gets us a roundup of that conflict in the West Asia region.
That's right. Strikes between US and Iran have continued for the 6th consecutive day. In fact, US strikes have now hit Chabahar maritime tower yet again. And Pete Hegseth, United States Secretary of War, has shared a picture of that as well. In fact, the United States has attacked more bridges and electrical equipment in Iran. In fact, attacks, like I said, they've continued for the 6th consecutive night. As far as US's attacks on Iran are concerned, well, they've covered not just Chabahar, but Keshem, Bushehr, Dashti, Khuzestan, Syria as well. And in fact, eastern Syria has been struck for the first time by Iran, and that is something that Iran, sort of acknowledged as well. Tehran, meanwhile, has warned that continued American pressure is going to bring devastating retaliation. Remember, these attacks are happening after President Donald Trump threatened to target Iran's infrastructure, and they have continued to do so. In fact, the IRGC has claimed to have struck US's aircraft in Jordan with missiles and drones. In fact, attacks have also happened from the Iranian side on Middle Eastern countries, including on Qatar, which is a key war mediator. Bahrain and Kuwait have been attacked too. So, of course, that interim ceasefire that was arrived at between both the sides in June, that has collapsed. And now the battle continues for the control of the Strait of Hormuz. Who ends up controlling that? The United States does not want Iran to control that. It's said in no uncertain terms. And, of course, Iran is maintaining to stake its claim on the Strait of Hormuz.
Right, Sumita, thank you so much for that. Now, India has responded, in fact, to the proposed U.S. bill that seeks to impose 100% tariff on countries purchasing Russian oil. Reacting to the legislation backed by 60 U.S. senators, MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said New Delhi is closely monitoring the developments. He reiterated that India sources crude oil from multiple countries based on its energy security needs and commercial considerations. Jaiswal also said 7 Indian flagships are currently operating in the Persian Gulf, with maritime traffic in the region continuing as normal.
The proposed Senate bill, we are closely following these developments, and we are aware of the proposed legislation. That is what I have to say. She, on the number of Indian vessels which are there in the Persian Gulf, as of today, we have, as you all know, that there's regular traffic between India and the Persian Gulf region. We have 7 Indian ships which are there in Persian Gulf, Indian flag ships which are there in Persian Gulf. As far as buying oil, we buy oil from various countries in the world. It is based on our approach towards energy sourcing.
India, meanwhile, has maintained that the Chabahar port terminal in Iran remains undamaged despite reports of attacks in the region. In fact, MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said that American sanctions waiver for the port had expired some time ago, and New Delhi has ever since been engaging with the relevant stakeholders on the future course of the project itself. Let's listen in.
If you're following the issue, there was a waiver which was given by the American side. That waiver got over some time back. Post that, we have been in discussion with relevant stakeholders as to how to take this particular issue forward. On your question that it was attacked, yes, we have seen some reports in that regard, but we can also tell you that the terminal itself did not face any damage.
Now, let's quickly take a look at how the U.S. markets are performing this Friday. The S&P 500 is down nearly 1%, while the Nasdaq Composite has slipped 1.2% as technology stocks come under pressure. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, however, has edged 0.1% higher after opening in the negative territory. The major indices are also in the red for the week. The S&P 500 is down more than 1% week to date, while the Nasdaq has lost over 2%. The Dow is broadly flat for the weeks. Besides weakness in the chip stock, Netflix is amongst the biggest drags on the market, with stock tumbling 8% after streaming giant reported second quarter results that largely met expectations but issued a weaker than expected earnings outlook, disappointing investors.
Meanwhile, Britain is all set for a change in leadership, with Andy Burnham elected as the new leader of the Labour Party and due to become the country's next Prime Minister. That will happen probably on Monday. In fact, Burnham will succeed Keir Starmer after the outgoing Premier formally tenders his resignation to King Charles III. A former mayor of Greater Manchester, Burnham has promised to focus on regional empowerment, economic renewal, and to devolve more power away from London as he prepares to take charge of the UK government. Burnham, remember, will be invited by King Charles III to form a new government on Monday after Starmer formally tenders his resignation to the British monarch. Now, despite his offer of hope to places that feel left behind, there is still much to know about Andy Burnham and how he will govern the UK. In fact, Burnham pledged to build a politics, quote-unquote, based on unity and hope, and an economy that spreads growth evenly across the country.
Well, on that note, it is time for us to slip into a very short break, but you don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on India Tonight with more news and updates.
Welcome back. You're watching India Tonight, where we bring you the evening's roundup of key news action from the day. Moving on to the world of cybercrime next, the Securities and Exchange Board of India has cautioned against an emerging trend in cybercrime referred to as the boss scam, or a CEO/MD impersonation fraud, whereby fraudsters are targeting high-ranking officials or finance executives in a manner that compels them to transfer funds to these fraudsters. My colleague Anurag Shah gets us more details on the scam.
So SEBI has warned capital market listed companies and regulated entities about the new frauds going on, which is boss scam, where fraudsters are sending mails, messages on name of MD CEOs of listed company, and then asking for money transfer, fund transfer, and also asking to keep it confidential. So as per the SEBI's release, how does the boss scam work? So employees receives a message in the CEO or MD's name, then they ask for an urgent fund transfer. Payment is directed to a mule bank account. So the transfer of money is again to a mule bank account where you cannot take it back also, and employee is also told to keep it confidential. And AI videos are used, AI phone calls are used where employees are assuming that it's a real call and there is an urgent need to transfer a fund. So SEBI has warned listed companies, regulated entities, and fraudsters are also sending a zip file containing a malware. Opening the file can compromise Windows device, and malware can hijack an active WhatsApp web session also. So it's a new scam in market on which SEBI is warning listed companies and regulated entities to verify payment details or to check before making transfer on the name of boss and calling it as a boss scam.
Right, Anurag, thank you so much for taking us through this entire boss scam. Now, moving on, RBI has renewed its push for production of polymer notes. RBI's wholly owned subsidiary, BRBNMPL, has invited global EOI for polymer banknote substrate. Akanksha is here with more details on that.
That's right, the RBI has taken its first formal step towards exploring polymer banknotes in India. Bharatiya Reserve Banknote Mudran Private Limited, or BRBNMPL, which is RBI's banknote printing subsidiary, has now invited global expressions of interest from international companies to manufacture and supply security feature polymer substrates sheet which are used for printing banknotes. Now, this is essentially a procurement exercise aimed at identifying and paneling global suppliers of polymer substrates. Importantly, this is not a decision to introduce polymer notes just yet. Now, according to the tender which is out in the public domain, bids can be submitted till August 18, with technical bids also scheduled to open on the same day. Now, why is the RBI even looking at polymer notes? Well, polymer banknotes typically last about 2.4 to 4 times longer than conventional paper notes. They are also more resistant to moisture, dirt, folding, tearing, and they can even incorporate advanced security features like transparent windows, which makes counterfeiting much more difficult. Additionally, countries such as Australia, Canada, and the UK already use polymer currency. Now, having said that, the RBI has not taken a final call or introducing polymer banknotes. In fact, during the last MPC press conference, RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra had said that the proposal is still under examination
consideration with both the benefits and the challenges being evaluated. Now at this point, there's no timeline for when polymer notes could be introduced, but if the RBI eventually decides to go ahead, the plan is expected to begin with a pilot rollout in lower denominations like 10 rupees and 20 rupees before expanding further. But do remember, the current tender doesn't specify any denomination or launch timeline. Now, of course, it's not all smooth sailing. There are also challenges as well. Polymer notes are more expensive to manufacture initially. Currency printing infrastructure may need upgrades, and ATMs, cash recyclers, and note sorting machines could require recalibration. There's also dependency on a limited number of global suppliers, while recycling polymer notes require dedicated processes. So while polymer notes won't be reaching your wallet anytime soon, but yes, this is definitely a significant step that shows the RBI has started moving from discussions to the procurement stage.
Well, from polymers to petrol next. Amid the controversy that's ongoing over ethanol blending, ET now spoke to the president of the All India Distillers Association, who has dismissed any major damage to vehicles due to blended fuel. Listen in.
Well, ethanol is a great future. We are now doing something new in the country. It's not the first time also. Brazil and US already a good example where they effectively implemented these policies. If you know, recently Brazil has started 32% blending. And also they started just now a ship running on ethanol. So ethanol per se fuel is a very noble fuel and is a great potential. However, all technology, all new idea always has some hiccup. And the challenges will be settled with all stakeholders sitting together. I don't see a big challenge because we are not doing something first time.
But sir, particularly about mileage, the complaints that the mileage is getting down, I mean, it's getting reduced. So what is your take on that, like how it has to be resolved?
Technically speaking, mileage will be reduced by 3 to 4%, which already agreed by OEM, and they recently had a press conference. Perhaps you must have seen that. And this is fully very well compensated by the lower price of fuel which is being used. If you remove ethanol from the petrol, the price for petrol will go up. So it's a give and take. Like if you see 85 is cheaper 30% practically now. If you have the fuel concern, go for 85. Buy a flex car, go 85, you get a cheaper fuel, and economy, that's mileage get fully compensated by this.
On to an ET Now exclusive. The Power Ministry initiates interministerial consultations on underground cable manufacturing scheme. The industry consultations are done and the scheme has gained momentum. Prakash is here with more details.
Well, that's an important development at the government sources tell us that the Power Ministry has initiated interministerial consultation on an underground cable manufacturing scheme, a very significant development. In fact, the government plans a VGF scheme to boost underground cable manufacturing. The Central Electricity Authority has prepared a proposal. In fact, the process has been initiated. The government is planning to expand underground cable manufacturing by providing incentives to companies. Incentives would be provided based on manufacturing capacity. In fact, industry consultations have already been completed, and sources tell us that the overall financial outlay could be around rupees 10,000 crore. In fact, the scheme is likely to be sent to the Indian Cabinet within the next 2 months. A very significant development coming in. In fact, not only providing financial incentives on manufacturing, in fact, the government is also planning to supply surplus renewable power to various countries through underground cables. In fact, countries including Sri Lanka, Singapore, Myanmar could be connected through underground cables. In fact, government is planning to evacuate surplus power, and surplus power could be transmitted through these underground cables to various countries. In fact, renewable energy evacuation from various states is one of the key objectives of this scheme. Solar power developers are being forced to curtail generation by up to 50% in some cases due to lack of transmission infrastructure. Therefore, the process has been initiated. Government is not only planning to enhance domestic manufacturing capacity, but also planning to transmit surplus power to various countries. Back to you.
Moving on, it's a historic moment for Indian space research as Skyroot Aerospace attempts the first orbital launch of its indigenously developed Vikram-1 rocket. Now, for context, the rocket in question is set to carry a range of commercial payloads, marking a major milestone for the country's fast-growing space tech ecosystem. Now, among those payloads on board is one from Bengaluru-based Graha Space and Cosmoserve. ET Now caught up with Graha Space's co-founder and CEO Ramesh Kumar V. Let's listen into a slice of their exclusive conversation.
We are actually launching our Solaris nano satellite in Mission Siddhi, which is part of the Vikram-1 launch. And we would be testing our systems and subsystems, the nano satellite bus and platform itself. And we are intending to prove it in space. So this actually helps us validate our technologies that we have developed for our nano satellites, and it will be helpful for our future missions as well. So when I mean technology demonstration of our systems and subsystems, that includes our communication module, our power systems, solar panels, antenna unit, all of them together, the control module, all of them together. So that forms our holistic bus and platform. So this is what we intend to do with Vikram-1. Earlier last year, we did test it out with, we wanted to test with the Brazilian launch, but then since it was a partial success, we are again doing it this time. So that's in short, yeah.
Now, following mass resignations at ISRO, Centre has stepped in for damage control. Centre has reportedly directed the organization not to accept resignation or voluntary retirement requests from some sections of the employees. In a memorandum issued this week, the Department of Space directed major ISRO centers not to routinely accept resignation or voluntary retirement requests from the Group A scientific and technical personnel associated with the national missions. Acknowledging the mass resignations, ISRO chairman V. Narayana said that the space organization was prepared to deal with the departures. This comes after reports of over 100 scientists quitting in recent months.
With that, it's a wrap from Shibani and myself at our studios right here in Mumbai. Thanks so much for watching, but we'll be back with more news and updates. Keep staying tuned to ET Now.